Welcome to Revenue Unscripted, the show for B2B founders, CEOs, advisors, and leaders, where we unpack what really drives stronger revenues and margins. It's not just product, it's not just process, but people and behaviors, much to the chagrin of some of those leaders, I'm sure. I'm your host, Jennica Dixon, president at Slattery Sales Group, and together we're going to dive into how real organizations build high-performing sales cultures, avoid costly talent mistakes, and turn complex deals into predictable growth. And today, I am joined by someone who spends his days right at the intersection of sales strategy and technology and human behavior. Paul Fuller is the Chief Revenue Officer at Membrain, the sales effectiveness CRM built for complex B2B selling. And if you haven't yet had a chance to check out Membrain, it's gorgeous. I strongly recommend. Paul leads revenue growth across more than 80 countries, working with a global network of sales consulting organizations to create scalable growth through sales excellence. Paul has led and coached sales and marketing teams all over the world. You may also know him as the host of the Art and Science of Complex Sales podcast, which, again, I strongly recommend. In this conversation, we're going to get very real about what it takes to build a solid sales organization with shorter cycles, cleaner pipelines, stronger margins, but without burning your people out or burying them in bad systems. So if you've ever looked at your sales team and thought, we have such good people, so why is this still so hard? This episode is for you. Paul, welcome to Revenue Unscripted.
Wow, that sounds like a great episode. I'm pumped.
I'm excited too.
Yeah.
What is it that we're going to cover?
Yeah, let's get after it. Thank you for having me on. This is exciting.
Thank you so much for joining us. I know that you are incredibly busy. I know I say this a lot, but it's always worth repeating. Revenue generators are the busiest people in the marketplace, and I don't take that lightly. So we're going to go through this and respect your time, but you have so much wealth of knowledge to bring to our audience, and I am very excited to unpack at least some of your brain. But before we dive in, would you mind just giving listeners a really quick snapshot of what you're working on these days? What are you working on, like today, even?
Today, oh man, what I'm working on today. Well, right now I'm recording an awesome podcast with a partner of Membrain who's amazing. We are working on reformatting our partner program, and actually our pricing structure is we're evolving as the world tends to change. So we're changing with it and looking to lead the way. And then I'm later on today, I have a couple of coaching sessions with a sales reps on our team, which I love doing. It's so much fun. And so, yeah, I'm getting in all different aspects of revenue and revenue planning.
Yes, indeed. And I have to say that one of the reasons, and just full disclosure for our listeners too, I have been working with Membrain for I think a few years now, because whenever we are working with our clients, and we've been in over 2,000 companies to help lift sales performance, it's one thing to train the right behaviors. It's another thing to really kind of build in those systems of accountability, but actually keeping those things going after a consulting engagement is done is a challenge. And some of the systems that are out there are really hard to work with, and others are, an Excel spreadsheet. So this is a tool that we have absolutely loved for simplifying really kind of the heavy lift that is required when we're changing sales teams' behaviors in order to lift performance. So I am thrilled to have you here. So thank you.
Absolutely.
I am very curious. You've been in sales and revenue and leading teams for a while. What is something that you used to believe about sales that you no longer believe? And what changed your mind?
Oh man, that's a great question. I used to believe that sales was primarily a numbers game.
Oh.
And that really comes from a lot of background. I started out as an SDR at a software company, and quickly went up to be a director of sales operations at a venture-backed firm, and then started our own sales as a service company. And the measurables were always really important in that, and the measurables and the KPIs and all of that was something that you always had to present. We had to present it to, VCs, we had to present it to CEOs, we had to present it to our clients, we had to present it all over the place. But it, over the past 10 years, I really have become extremely convinced, and even more so in the past year, that sales it's not a numbers game, it's a people's game. And you need to wrap amazing things around the people, but we got to be very first and foremost focused on the individuals, both that we're selling to and the individuals that, as a sales leader, that are doing the work. And so that is something that has changed in me. It's changed big time.
Oh, I love that. Can you possibly give me an example of how that plays out in practice? Like, what is something that you do differently as an executive now that you might not have done before with that shift?
Yeah, great question. I'm a big believer. I'm a huge believer in reporting and numbers, like and accountability to that. Right.
You do run a system to that effect.
Yeah, like a huge believer in that.
Yeah.
And so, but it's a nuanced. It I guess where I would say I've changed is in the nuance. So, for example, I could go out and I could say, "Hey, everybody on our team, you have to make 300 calls and do 100 emails and have 600 conversation and this, that, and the other." And that's what's going to drive our revenue. And because we have that number of impressions in market, we're going to get this many opportunities in the pipeline, and the pipeline's it's going to be a 60-day pipeline. And right. So I know the numbers, you know the numbers. We've all been in that game. The multiplying force, though, around that becomes how invested you are in the individual that's doing them, because you can really dive in, and if you help somebody build their self-leadership skills, their leadership, their ability to serve more effectively, their ability to discover more effectively, you become more of a mentor and a shepherd rather than a demander on high of you must hit these numbers, right? And I've had much more success actually doing that and helping people set their own goals and guide their own behaviors and their own activity. I can give them an end goal and destination that they need to arrive at, but if we can start to give them empowerment over, their KPIs that it's going to take to get there, it's really a difference maker. And I love my team, absolutely adore them, and they all take take responsibility for that. They don't all have the same activity goals. They don't all have the same gifts, but they all are going to hit the results out of the park, because that's how we're getting things done. And you can do that in a system. That's the thing. I've learned that I can do that systematically in a system, in a sales system that demands and drives results, but I can empower each individual in a really good way.
Fascinating. I love this because what you're saying is rich, because sales is one area of the organization where sometimes we see, and you tell me if this resonates. Sometimes when we start working with an organization, we find that sales has been treated kind of like the Wild West of individuality. Like, whatever floats your boat, just do it, just get us the right results, and you do you. And there's very little accountability. It's kind of an opaque black box of results. There's the star seller that's bringing in the top revenue, or are they? And then there's everybody else. But then on the other side of the spectrum, we sometimes see kind of what you were describing, where there's almost an overly engineering the system and thinking, as long as we can up the goal, we'll reach the goal the same way that we reached the first goal. And, if we need to grow by 20%, then let's just up the numbers by 20%, and what we've got will fit the bill. And it's almost like there are dials that we can go up and down with automatically, as if it's a machine. And unfortunately it's not, because we have humans. And if we want humans to change their behavior, we have to approach that a certain way. And so what you're describing is resonates with me because I've seen that play out where you can over engineer it, but you can also under accountability it.
Yeah, amen. There's a happy medium, and I call that it's empowerment. Is kind of the happy medium, is that accountability is it just has to happen in a sales organization. It just has to, right? There is no
Right.
so we do need to set goals, and we do need to do that well, and we do need to have an understanding of what it's going to take to, reach a finish line and do it continually. But too often, and I would say this, kindly to sales leaders out there, too often you are setting things that are the way you do things, right? Or the way that you've done it in the past, and and then demanding somebody conform and fit that exact same mold and you're ignoring a key factor that we are in a business of human to human connection, and people connect differently, right? So,
Right.
that being said, I am still a lover of metrics. I'm a huge lover of systems. I'm a huge lover of weekly reports and numbers and accountability and all of those things. There's this gift that I got in understanding that it's when we start to empower people to do things within a system, and I liken it to a football team, right? A football team is going to call plays, and a quarterback's going to come to the line, and he can audible that play, and they can operate within a system, but each have individual ways of doing things, right? And they're going to become much better if they do those things their individual ways, because their bodies are different, how they operate is different, how they think is different. It's the same type of thing. How do we empower a system that gets the best out of people and gives them a path to walk, but let them have flexibility in the path as they walk it?
Wow. That's awesome. Okay. So I'm
Somebody
curious.
likes so good. I'm glad at least one person.
Well, it's part of me is also like Paul, that sounds like chaos, but I know, I mean, it's true because this is a human art and it can be a science, but I do think that it's in our era, it's more common, I think, for leaders to err on the side of over engineering and over structuring and over KPIing. And so I'm very curious. If you were talking to, let's say, a CEO or an advisor, what are 2 to 3 overrated metrics that leaders look at when they're looking at sales? And this could be at a couple different levels. I mean, it could be very high level for the leaders who are making strategic decisions about where the organization goes next, or it could be let's say 1 or 2 levels down from that, where it's a little bit more tactical. But what do you see anywhere between those 2 levels of what are some overrated, like 2 to 3 overrated sales metrics that you would strike if you could, and just be like, save your time, just don't.
Yeah, I'm going to step back 1 second and say one thing before I answer that question, because here I think is really, really important, is that we do over-index on certain metrics and certain things, right? We do that because we under-index on building leaders and on coaching.
Oh,
So
yes.
it's a massive thing that we need to really understand, and I think we're actually having a big shift in terms of that today, because you need to build leaders and you need to coach well for people to be able to operate in a changing world. You just have to, right?
Yeah.
And so with that in mind, I'm going to give you a couple of metrics that I would add to and a couple that I'll take away.
Okay.
The couple that I'm going to add to is leaders holding themselves accountable, the leader themselves, in indexing their one-on-ones and ensuring that that is a KPI. Time spent with reps and time spent on those one-on-ones and understanding those issues should be a systematic KPI for any leader and any manager. It's the
Yes.
first thing that goes out the door, and it's also the first thing that people are like, well, I don't understand what the heck is going on in my organization, right? When they stop having those.
It's
So
so
that's,
true. Yes.
yeah, that's one I would add. Now,
Okay.
there's a couple that I'd take away that people over index is number one is flat out just vanity metrics like number of phone calls. All right. I don't care if it takes you one phone call to get a conversation or 50 phone calls to get a conversation. Um, the core metric there is the conversation. I don't care if you have that conversation on, over LinkedIn or over Slack or in person. You as a rep, I'm not, in general, for a more mature rep, I don't care about the number of phone. I do care about the number of positive interactions they have and the number of conversations. And so that conversation is the core metric that I think is really important.
Love that.
I do love, so that's kind of the vanity metrics that people get stuck in. The other one is like the number of emails sent. I used to be a big believer in that because it actually was helpful to understand because I'd have to, people opened and read their emails and those type of things. It just doesn't happen anymore. So, and we've gotten to this point where people are saying, well, I send 200 emails and I have a 0.5 open rate. Man, I just need to send 60,000 emails. And if I still keep that 0.5 open rate, but they don't understand you get diminishing returns on those.
Right.
So those are the type of metrics that I think we've given ourselves over to in the past. And I know a lot of people are moving away from them. The metrics, again, that I go more towards are, what is the actual positive interaction that moves something forward? So is it a conversation? Is it a positive meeting held? We call our types of meetings, I love first meetings. I actually love measuring first meetings because it's the number of times that we have connected and jumped in with somebody that we didn't know before. So we call these our initial vibes. That is wonderful. And then, those are all great metrics, but I think there's some on the front end that we have over-indexed in the past that we can get rid of.
I think that's very smart. Oh, there's so many different directions I could go here. So I got to get my brain all back together here.
Focus.
Yes,
Let's go
focus, Jennica, focus.
Do it.
Well, I love what you said about the team, the leaders, because one of the things that we've seen, if let's say the founder starts the business and at first, they are the primary seller. They're the ones out in the marketplace having conversations to generate revenue. And then over time, they grow their team. They hire salespeople, and over time, they probably have to hire more salespeople because a lot of those hires may not work out. And so they keep growing their team. And eventually they're like, okay, we're big enough. We need a layer of leadership for the sales team. And Paul, what is one huge thing that you have seen people do in that scenario when they're looking for a leader to their team? What is one very common thing that executives tend to do and they may not realize that it could sabotage results?
Let's just put our top performer into that.
Yes.
Top performer, put them into that manager spot.
Yes.
Just throw them in there. They're going to do great. It's fine.
Yep.
And then I can take my hands off the wheel.
Yes, exactly. And as you were talking, I was thinking of that because we've seen that happen so many times. And then we're typically called in about a year to 18 months after that to help with some of the things that are happening. And there is a difference between a leader of sales and a sales producer, that individual contributor who's on the front lines, having those conversations in the marketplace to generate revenue. And if you can't afford to pull your star seller off of the role of individual contributor, don't. And because I know many elite sellers who've gone through our programs who are not happy when they're put in the position of, now I have to, herd cats and I can't actually be generating revenue. And it's a really hard role for them. They're split, their attention is split. And at the end of the day, they're going to go where the incentives are, which is typically on client calls, prospect calls. And what is dropped is the one-on-ones with the sellers that they are leading. And so what you're saying is quite profound in terms of organizing a team to maximize potential revenue growth and not have margins get crushed.
Yeah, and what's put in there generally in its place, right? Or is, hey, I'm just going to come along on this deal. And what happens is that then that now new VP of sales ends up running the deal,
Yes.
and telling the seller what to do,
Yes.
and treating that as mentorship or that type of stuff. And frankly, it's that's helpful sometimes, but a lot of times it's more damaging, and it's damaging to that VP of sales whose real job, right, is to set up a systematic manner in which we close business continually, get in front and control quality and how we're going to do it. If the VP of sales has to be that, has to be in front of somebody to understand that, or to believe that there's quality happening, or to close a business, that's rough, right? And so that's where you come in, right? That's where our system comes in. That's what and why we work with organizations like yours, is because the real job, right, and when you get to that stage, is very different from swooping in and saving the day and doing a bunch of business and being the hero. It is how I lift everybody up to systematically execute the vision and goals that we're going for as a team. It's a very different role.
Right.
It's still fun to get on customer calls. Like, I love customer, but that's not my job, right?
Right.
It, by any stretch of the imagination, nor should it be. I have people, I want to lift up leaders that are so much better than me at that.
I love that. And we have seen in our work at Slattery Sales Group, we've seen that there's kind of an optimum size for a sales team under a leader, where the team is, again, to use the word again, the talent is optimized. They are in their swim lane. They are crushing it. Their hidden strengths have been mitigated, and their hidden weaknesses have been mitigated, and their hidden strengths are really getting pulled out by their leader, who can put them to use, to put those strengths to work on behalf of the sales organization and ultimately the top line. So I'm curious, when you look at teams, what do you see as the optimum kind of number or size of a team for everything to work smoothly and avoid the kind of everybody kind of spinning out, doing their own thing, perhaps suboptimally, not getting the revenue and the margins that they perhaps should be? What is the optimum size that you have seen? Because I've got a number, but I want to know yours.
Yeah, I wonder if they're anywhere same. So, let me just ask: when we talk about team, are we talking about sales leader and sales team? So one sales manager to X number of salespeople?
Correct.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
5 to 6 is is that where I would land. And that really is because it's just look at the complexity of relationship, and look at the time that you have to spend in time, both with the sales rep, and then with the sales reps. So you want to have that one-on-one time for both the one-on-ones every week, plus customer calls with them, with them leading, right? And then you also need to be able to manage up. You have to develop that relationship with those above you and ensure you're doing that. And big portion of your job is going to be reporting. And so that's where I land. What about you?
Yes, I was thinking 6 to 7 at the very, very most. So we're absolutely right in line, because my dad and I worked together. Of course, he founded the Slattery Sales Group 40 years ago, and so we still work together. And he and I were talking about this recently, where a lot of organizations, especially as they're growing, they inadvertently kind of mingle the goals of the sales team and the leader. And what the leader really should be doing, he was telling me this recently, kind of his most recent take on it, is they need to be ensuring that the sales team is doing the right behaviors out of the marketplace, because there are certain things that a human salesperson can do in the marketplace that will, without even trying, crush margins. And the accountability that you were talking about earlier is so important, because when a salesperson, and because we're often hired to kind of be the in-between, when the manager's too busy, the leader's too busy, the VP's too busy to, train and coach the people, they're hoping that an outside team can come in and do that. And there's something that's less than ideal about that when the leader's too busy to do it. And some of the behaviors that we've seen that can accidentally crush margins include, the salesperson seeing the steps in the playbook, but not necessarily executing them in the right order. And if they jump to, let's say, presenting what we do and how we do it early, then the prospect rightly concludes, this looks exactly like your competitors. Let's go to lowest price. How much does that cost? And boom, now we're looking at crushed margins. Or if they are, you can train a person how to ask great questions, but when they are actually in front of a prospect asking those questions, how are they asking them? Are they asking them? And what does it sound like? So having that sales leader say, tell me what it sounds like. And if they hear questions that are verb led, could we, would you, things like that, that's a dead ringer right there that they're about to give up control of the conversation. And that's, of course, when control goes back to the prospect and margins get crushed again. So it's little things like that my dad and I were just talking about recently, how it's so important to have somebody there with the team, making sure that these things are happening, every week in those one-on-ones. And so I'm loving that you said 5 to 6 people and one-on-ones every week, because it's so critical to have that kind of guidance. But like you were saying earlier, without crushing the person's individual approach.
Yeah, and I think I'm going to shout out the book you guys wrote. I mean, Wimp Junction is awesome, and it really starts to help you with that and understand it. It's definitely a part of my required reading.
Thank you.
But I'll say that if a VP or a sales manager or whoever, if you set up a system, and can I dive into? There's some terms I just want to lay out here.
Please do.
I'm going to talk about a sales system as a broad thing. It's not necessarily just the software or just the same, but let's talk about, we need language in a framework of the language that we're going to use around what is sales, right? So we need that. We then need a sales process by which we follow to optimize our journey with a client. We need agreed upon, agreed upon KPIs and those, and then we need the how we work, which is the software is a part of that. That should codify everything for you. But you got to get all those pieces, right? And you need to then empower that with technology and training. So if you're really setting up a sales organization, there's different layers that you really need to pay attention to. And what I find happens a whole lot, even in my own life, right, is that you get sucked into deal like a VP or a CRO will get sucked into a deal management and specific deal, and then they let you're really caretaker of that framework and of that system, and you let that slip. And once you start to let that slip, and part of that system is like the one-on-ones and how we're going to coach and how we're going to work with people, and standard weekly reviews and those type of things. Once you let that slip, you let everything slip, right? And because you start to, that is the culture that starts to build your culture, and adherence to that framework and being together, and that commitment to that framework is really, really important. And so you let that slip, and you then, like I said, everything starts to fall off the table. I'm not quite sure this is making as much sense as I wanted to, but it's like once that doesn't become the center of your role, you run the risk of quality going down dramatically.
Ooh.
That makes sense.
Quality.
We may need to cut that part out. I don't know,
No.
I'm trying to say this in a way that's makes sense, and hopefully that did.
The quality of what is it? The selling? Is it the quality of results, or is it maybe the quality of the prospect journey?
Everything. It's like you need to be able to. and I say this at the beginning, I think a CEO needs to be able to understand the revenue framework and the customer journey just as well as the CRO and VP of sales.
Amen.
And they need to agree on that, and they need to have language around it. Like, our CEO knows what an initial vibe is and what that means to the company, and
Yeah.
what a vibe meeting means to a company, or how we qualify, right?
Yes.
And how we qualify our ICP, and what that means to the company. And that's really, really important,
Yeah.
because if we haven't set that up well, obfuscation happens all the time, and then the VP of sales is talking a different language to the CEO than they are to the sales rep, and it kills us, right? It kills our
Yes.
culture, it kills everything. So, like, embracing that idea of we are going to put in place a framework that we're going to live by, and we decide to live by this. We could change it over time, but we're going to have a core that we say, boom, this is where we're going to start and go back to. It's really, really important. So, and then if you let go of that, that's where quality suffers.
Man.
And quality of a customer journey, quality of internal communication, quality of how we sell. It just suffers in a big way.
Man. And so if that drops, what is, I'm thinking big picture, really, what's the cost of not getting that right? Because what you're describing is broad. I mean, that's big. So I'm curious, how have you seen this play out in practice? Really, how does that impact the organization as a whole when this isn't gotten right? Because I'm thinking of some examples
Yeah.
that I've lived through as I've seen that. But I'm really
Yeah.
curious about yours because
Well,
you've
you
been
you
through it.
let's talk about that founder-led sales. Like, let's go about back that. So, founder-led sales, they've done all the work, and there's a local beverage company that I'll think of, and I'm not going to name them because it's not a flattering story, but
Sure.
um, the founder-led sales was did well, right? Got them to a certain point, brought on the next 3 to 4 reps, went with that idea of, hey, I'm just gonna bring these people on, and they're just gonna gonna run. There was the only metric that was managed was revenue.
Oh,
That's the only one, right? Because he's like, oh, he's like, I'll coach him up. But it's all about results,
okay.
right? What do you think happens there? What happens there is founder-led sales guy's got a massive ego, steps in, and he tries to fix everything the reps do. He never has a good relationship with a rep. A rep is always not doing well enough, could never do it as well as I can.
Yeah.
Everything breaks. And that is the company culture there was horrific.
Oh,
Horrific. But that's the reason. Now you put that on its head, where a founder says, okay, thoughtfully, what I'm going to do is I'm going to think, even if they do small things, I'm going to have a base sales process.
right.
These are the things that I executed on. This is what I called them. This is what I named them. Right. And now let's put that in place, and let's measure some steps on the roadmap that get us to a sale. It becomes a completely different conversation. You can then have a coaching conversation. You can understand what reps are doing. You can guide them, lead them, etc. So I've seen it crash and burn companies when they don't say, I'm going to have just this basic framework of understanding around what sales is and how we do it. And it's more common than you think. And
Yep.
um,
Mm,
and because if and I think it starts with, again, starts with the CEO of those founder-led businesses that's willing to then empower a really good VP of sales and or manager to take that trip, but they have to agree on what this thing is, and then
yes.
they have to empower that person to go and run. I'm fortunately very empowered in my role. Like, we
Yeah.
just see the world the same way in terms of with setting this up, and I have the best software in the world to do it. Like, I'm just so it's been a joy to do, and not without its challenges. But we can all speak the same language,
Right.
and then it frees the reps to go execute. And I think they love it. They all tell me they like it, but
Yeah.
so
I love that. And yeah, you've really hit on something, because I'm thinking of some of the stories that we've lived through. And one of the ways I've seen this play out, exactly what you're describing, just a slightly different manifestation of it, is when there isn't a lot of clarity. Well, let's say there is clarity around qualification, right? And in some industries, it can take a lot of time to qualify a deal. Some industries are slower than others. Um, I'm heavily regulated industries, healthcare, you just notoriously long decision-making cycles. And those sales can take many, many months. And I know some very elite sellers in those industries who have, told me war stories over the years. And one of the things that happens is their CEO doesn't have a clear understanding of what constitutes a fully qualified opportunity, and they don't necessarily understand the milestones that we're at. And if they're new to the industry, they might look at the pipeline and say, this has been on here for 90 days. Why isn't it closed yet? Let me help. And they go
Mhm.
out, and all they do is they have a conversation where they discount heavily, give away the business, crush the margins and probably the
Yeah,
seller's income, and
yeah.
say, see, it wasn't that hard.
Wasn't that hard? Wasn't that
Right.
hard? Yeah.
Oh my
That's
goodness.
how I always did it.
Yes,
Just take them out
exactly.
to dinner. Yeah.
Yes, yeah,
Couple
take them
ice.
out to dinner, offer them a discount, and call it good. And it's if we don't all have a agreement over what those milestones are, like we're not at the point of presenting an offer to do business, let alone a discount on it. Goodness gracious, like we just gave away the margin. Those milestones are so critical.
Yeah. And I think he could sell, what is the Tommy Boy line? Like he could sell a red popsicle to a woman in white gloves or something along those lines. I completely butchered that. Sorry, Chris Farley, but you do get, I mean, there is a gifting for that. Like I love working with visionaries, and there is a huge gifting that they have to get the whole thing off the ground and started and working at that.
Yes.
But that is
Yes.
so much different than scaling. And you start to
Yes.
rip the heart out of your sales reps when you come and do that. Oh yeah, sure. I mean, I like them. They're going to be a great customer. Let's give them a 35 or 50% discount or whatever that is.
Right.
You got to be on. That's why I think just setting up that framework and system is just keep people on the same page is so key.
Yes, and I love it. You really do have phenomenal software for doing that. The and it's actually I was planning to ask this question, but Ken already touched on it. But from, let's say, from an executive's point of view, let's say from CEO level, board level perspective, how do companies accidentally make revenue less predictable as they scale? What are some things that companies do to make revenue inadvertently make revenue less predictable as they scale?
They get away from what I call the basics.
Mm,
Um, Another story.
yeah.
Um, well, they get away from the basics and they start to do the workarounds, right?
Ooh.
So and the workarounds come. Well, here's a story. So Fortune 500 company, again, won't name them because it's not flattering. But I was working with a guy, and here's the story that he told me about how they do their forecast. Right, so the reps will submit a forecast in Salesforce, and that is mainly based on these percentages and their gut feels and a couple of things. And then each manager then takes that forecast and then has to pare that down to what they actually believe the reps are going to say, bring in. Right, that forecast is then taken out into an Excel spreadsheet that goes in front of the VPs, and the VPs, based on their knowledge of the managers and the teams, will then massage the numbers to execute and then to present up to the board, right? And so you have so many areas and opportunities for issues there. And what is the root cause of that? Well, the root cause of that is because nobody stepped in and said, here is what we agree upon are the steps that and stages that we need to understand that is going to lead to predictability of revenue. built that in a system that actually empowers the rep, right? Instead of why do they do this? They generally do it because the reps are they're not carroted, they're sticked into entering data into their CRM, and they're told if you don't get it in by the end of the week, you're going to be fired. And so they just go in and enter everything that they possibly can, while they're having dinner, while they're doing, it's an extra job for them.
Yeah.
Instead of fundamentally shifting that conversation, which is, why don't we give somebody that actually empowers their work, helps them sell, that they will enjoy using, that can guide them along a successful sales process, and that we can actually trust what's going on. So that is the biggest thing, because when you start to then have workarounds that are outside systems of record, and that's what always happens, right?
Yes.
You have a rep that is going to, they don't like to put their contacts into the CRM because the big brother's watching them, or they, aren't going to up their deal. They up their deals just at the end of the month, and they are all doing it a different way. That kills forecasts. It crushes them, because you're moving away from the agreed upon, like, fundamental nature of what selling means to this company. And how can I do anything? How can I make a forecast if I don't have a predictable nature of what selling means to our company? You can't. So having those gates, having those discussions, and outlining it in a process that actually helps a rep sell changes everything. I can say confidently, I can do my forecast from one dashboard in Membrain, and a couple of questions I ask my reps.
Yes.
And the leaders, right? It's a very different experience than what I see most people have in corporate America.
I was just, oh my gosh, thank you, Paul. It's so spot on, because I was just having a conversation recently with one of our clients who's an individual client of ours. So they are our client. They pay for our services and not their employer. So they bring us from one company to the next. And I was talking to him because he's been in a number of different companies as our client. And he was describing one situation where, and he's an elite seller. He's phenomenal at running complex, long cycle B2B sales and getting great timing and margins on them. And he was talking about at one company, and this tends to happen when revenues haven't come in quite to expectations, or margins aren't quite where we'd been hoping, the scrutiny gets more intense. And in the situation he was describing, there were 3 different meetings a week where he had to prepare and submit information for the meeting. So, pipeline review, deals in process review, forecast review. And these 3 different meetings required 3 different reporting methods. They all asked for different information. And the only people who were under fire in those meetings were the reps who actually had something on the forecast. So if you're being really successful and you're landing conversations, then you get to be in the hot seat for a longer amount of time, because they're all like, well, why hasn't this closed yet? Why hasn't it closed?
Yeah, when's that deal coming in? When's that deal coming in?
Yes, exactly.
What's your forecast? Is this 95% or 92?
Yes, exactly. And he's looking at it, he's like, why am I in the hot seat here of the whole team?
Yeah.
He had the most time in the hot seat. He had the most in the pipeline. And it was a really kind of backwards way. But to their credit, they were trying to get clarity around their forecast and try to suss out where's fiction in the forecast. And they were having trouble doing that. And 3 different, he had like a PowerPoint for one, an Excel for another, and I don't remember what the third one was, but it was 3 different reporting methods, and each one took a couple hours. And he was like, I could be out talking to prospects. It's kind of a high opportunity cost.
Yeah. To make this as simple as possible, right? The simplest thing as possible that I would do. If I didn't have a system, if I didn't have anything, whatever, what are 3 things that the client needs to do? Like, decide on those 3 milestones, right?
Yeah.
What are those that a client needs to do to ensure that they're going to do business with you? Right. It's not about what you performed. It's what actions have they've done to show commitment to you.
Love
right.
that.
So just 3 things, 1, 2, 3, and assign a percentage to them. Like, if I was going to make it the simplest thing in the world, and if I had no tools, I would sit here with a spreadsheet or even my notebook, and I would say, okay, has this one done these 3 things? and then I can forecast. But
Right.
again, people don't think that they build it into a system, and the system generally gets over engineered, and it's meant to collect data instead of help a rep.
Yeah.
So I think just how do you help a rep do those three things and gain commitment on them? And then that will give you.
Yes. I want to double click on something you just said.
Okay.
It's built to collect data, not to help the rep.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a lot there, Paul. There's a lot there.
Too much, unfortunately.
Yeah. But it's, so I'm curious if a CEO suspects that their tech stack is creating more busy work and not necessarily creating better selling, what is a quick audit that you would have them run this quarter on their tech stack?
First off, the first question is trust. You got to trust your reps and audit the actual activity that they're doing in it. Right. So that's number one. And unfortunately, a lot of times you find most of the reps are they've just given up and they're not using it. Right. Mm-hmm. So that's number one. So is my team leveraging the tools I've given them? And then let them rate it by effectiveness. How effective is this? Simply does it help me close deals?
Wow.
Right. Because that's really critical, because we've gotten to this point where there's a lot of technology out there that does not do that. It simply does not help somebody keep track of sales is not an easy gig, but there's some basics they got to do. We got to keep track of the contact that I made with all these people, right? It's got to give me some sort of picture to that. It's got to help me keep track of my pipeline and the actions that have happened in my pipeline that I can guarantee then results to the organization. And it's got to help me generate referrals from that pipeline and drive account growth, right? And so at the very simplest, those are the things it's got to do. So ask your team, is it doing it, right? and actually listen to your team, because that's a big deal. It's a big deal. And some CEOs get really don't want to do that because they're going to come back and they say they're going to need X, Y, and Z and so much more, but we already have this system. It's what they get. You can't be afraid of that. And I'd say that's kind of the other recommendation there is don't be afraid of the sunk cost fallacy. It's a fallacy. Sunk cost it's gone. That money that you spent, like we've sunk $1.5 million into this system. Well, if you build a system that sucks.
Yep. So true. So true. Once the cost is sunk, it is sunk, whether you keep using the tool or not.
Yeah, it just is. Mm-hmm. And that, quite frankly, is the game of a lot of the larger software companies. It just is the game. They get that upfront investment. They then give a platform that you can build on and sink money into. People hire around that, and then you get stuck and you feel stuck.
Yeah,
because you just have built this thing around that. But if you're not afraid of change, right, just leave that to the side and say, what can I do best for my reps? And first off, just ask your reps if it's effective or not. Truly understand and seek to understand that. And two, don't be afraid of change. If you need to change, right? And that's something that I think that too many people just get stuck on.
I believe it. And that's wisdom. Those are two very, very good things. Thank you.
Well, my dog was cheering me on, so maybe you heard that.
I did. Very enthusiastically. It's great. Paul, I want to make sure I honor your time. And I have to say thank you so much for joining us today. As we've been talking, I am thinking of a whole lot of other questions to ask you. So we'll have to do this again sometime because we could take this in a number of different directions. Your expertise and your insights are incredibly valuable. So thank you for bringing that perspective.
From you, I will take that compliment. Thank you so much. And same to you. I truly, truly respect the work that you're doing and keep after it. And like I said, I was not asked to do this, but go out, buy that book, Wimp Junction. It's fantastic. Make sure you're reading it. Wealth of knowledge, and is so helpful.
Oh, thank you very much. I very much appreciate that. It's been fun. Our clients are people that we've learned a lot from over the years, so I appreciate them very much. So thank you. I appreciate the plug. Thank you everyone for joining us today, and we will be back next time on Revenue Unscripted. Thank you.